I'd like to call to order at 6:09 p.m. the MERSD School Committee meeting on September 2nd, 2025. We'll start as we normally do with any public comment. If you're online, please put your name and address into the chat, and we will call on you. And send what you guys are. Okay. So it looks like Nina is first in line. If you'd like to go ahead, Nina.
Thanks, Chris. I just hope the school year is starting off well. Actually dropped off Libby this weekend, so it's interesting to be on the other side of it. Quick question was really about the Essex Elementary School building project website and just sort of who owns it, because it looks like a great website, but the links don't go to a lot of information. It's a lot of coming soon, but then I happened to see that there's a community meeting on October 8th, I think, which is just around the corner. So there's just that part where I was just kind of curious who owns it, and then sort of where we can slowly get more information as to, just obviously what's going on in terms of updates and all.
Perfect. Thank you, Nina.
Yeah.
We actually have an update on that tonight, so I'm guessing we can cover some of that for you.
Cool.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? I don't think so.
Oh. Hi, I'm Sarah Davis, 11 Highland Ave. I wrote this on my laptop, so I hope it's okay to sit down. I'm not sure how to do that standing up. First of all, I just want to say thank you to the committee. I know how much work this is, and the work you do for the community is vital. So we all appreciate it. I also want to say congratulations on the overwhelming success of last year's budget. I think that was, a real testament to the work that was done, and gives you pretty much a clear mandate that the town support the schools, even with rising costs and the taxpayer burden. For background, as some of you know, I'm the chair of the Manchester Library Board, so I have a bit of insight into the way town government works, and I'm also the parent of now 2 memorial students in kindergarten. As we begin a new budget cycle, I'm reminded of the number of times it was said that next year, meaning this year, would be an even harder budget cycle. I'd like to suggest 3 improvements based on last year's experience. Though for context, I didn't attend any meetings since the town vote, so I apologize if these points have been covered. First, start earlier. I only started attending the meetings in February, but it seemed the process was still in workshop mode as deadlines loomed. Starting sooner will give you time to set priorities, work with Pam and Michelle, and present a united budget for effective advocacy. I know that a budget calendar is prepared, which I have, again, not reviewed, but the policy manual outlines a process where you, as I'm sure you know, count backwards from the town meeting. And one of the things I noticed was when it talks about 45 days before the school committee adoption, that the school committee is supposed to prepare a tentative operating budget in accordance with the regional agreement and transmit it to the chairpersons of the finance committee and the board of selectmen. I'm not sure if that exact process was followed last year, but based on listening, it seemed that proposed budgets were still being presented to the committee, and I wasn't sure if the tentative budget had been adopted. Second, I think together we can strengthen advocacy. I urge you to build relationships with the finance committees and lead with a clear, ambitious budget. Seek the counsel of your select board liaison. When you go to the FinComs, go big and defend your budget. Don't negotiate against yourselves by starting with a compromise. Be the strongest advocates for your school while using conservative assumptions to avoid surprises like last year's healthcare cost. Third, and this is the last one, I suggest improving communications early. Last year, the late approval created quite a compressed outreach effort, which, while impressive, I'm wondering if we can avoid that this year. If I were on this committee, I suggested you consider more regular updates to the community, including a monthly piece in the cricket, and keep engaging groups like we did in those last 2 weeks, including the Council on Aging, the ADA committee, and the Rotary. I think if you guys don't get out and share your message, you're letting other people tell it for you. You're letting the town administrator report, the editors of the town administrators report, and the cricket editors just to kind of report on what's going on. I would suggest on this that you partner with town staff like Tiffany Marletta in Manchester. She's the communication director and she helped with the MBTA zoning amendment. And if any of you follow that, she did a very effective job. And I think she can make your jobs easier. With earlier preparation, stronger advocacy, and consistent communication, you'll build trust and ensure continued support from our schools.
Thank you. Yeah, I believe that's it. So moving on, next is actually our student report. How you doing, Meg?
I'm great. How are you?
Good.
Okay. Well, school, we're back in, we're 3 days in. It's been off to a good start. Classes are going pretty well so far. I'm realizing now why Stella was like off doing her homework afterwards. APs are stressful but good. Obviously we already have sports starting. Sounds like soccer's going pretty well. So that's very exciting. A few things, well, this one's a little personal for me, but the changes that happened with the play, were rolled out very, very well done. Like the way it was handled, from a student perspective, especially, I deeply appreciate that. And it was handled very well. So thank you for that to admin. So other things, Aspen was a little out of whack the first few days, and everyone is very, very grateful to Ms. Roy, Ms. Drinkwater, guidance, etc., for all the like help and effort they put into making sure that got dealt with as quickly as possible. But there were definitely, it was a bit chaotic with like teachers didn't even know where but like where some of their students were, because students were like, which class am I supposed to be in right now? So that was a little chaotic, but it seems to have been sorted out, I think. I was told that I didn't bother looking at Aspen. I was like, I see my schedule, I know. But I've heard it was stressful to look at, but I think it's been dealt with differently very. With schedule in general, the high school schedule being aligned with the middle school schedule. I'm very lucky that I know and understand, because I've been paying attention to things, why we have the alignment to like have the two schedules be lining up and stuff. But there are definitely people who are a bit hesitant to change, and some people who also don't really pay attention necessarily. So I've heard a lot of people in the hallways and in classes and stuff like, what am I doing? Which class am I even supposed to go to at this point? But something I have noticed is it's mostly only sophomore through senior, because freshmen, they were going to have to do some kind of schedule switching anyway, going from middle school to high school. So that wasn't as big of an issue with them. Oh, and with having a middle schooler in my house, I'm interested to see, I don't exactly know how this would be measured, but I would like to put out there for thought how not having meat block will impact the students. I'm just curious because I don't know fully anything about this. And I know Count was a little on edge about that. Beyond that, we had the club fair, which went really well. It seems like there was a lot of people really excited and ready to get involved in things. It was earlier than usual, which was good in some ways, but also there were a lot of students who felt like they did not have time or warning to get things prepared if they wanted to put something out there. But I do think it's nice in some aspects where there's not people who are coming up with clubs for the sake of having a club. So in some ways it felt a lot more organized, which was really nice and appreciated. So any of the clubs that were like legit clubs were being showcased and focused on. With that, I have heard we have a new debate team thing going on. I don't know much about it. I know there was an article about it in the Cricket. I don't know anything about it, but it seems pretty cool. Especially because it's not conflicting with Sounders, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so a lot of people getting ready and excited to be involved, but we'll see how much follow through there actually is. But especially after, I know Stella talked about this quite a bit in our small group. I don't remember if she brought it to the big group discussion. She did, with the like dwindling numbers of people doing activities outside of like sports and stuff. So hopefully that'll be good. And then my last like big thing is the new phone policies coming with like statewide stuff and all that. I think people are still a little tiny bit confused just on like, again, it's mostly students who not necessarily paying attention as much, but like why are we having a little more of these kinds of things? I think for me, my biggest thing has been as we've gotten older, like even going from middle school to high school, but even like last year, throughout the school year, we were told as you get older, you get more independence with your phone and stuff. And now it kind of feels like a little bit of a backtrack. And I understand that, why we have it in place and stuff. But it's also been a little bit of an adjustment for teachers who are not used to having to say, hey, go, like everyone has to go put your phones away. So like in the middle of class today, a few different times in different classes, teacher would be like, oh crap, I totally forgot. Go put your phones up in the thing. Like you can't have your phone. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes. It just feels a little strange for now. But beyond that, everything seems to be going pretty well. Classes are classing, teachers are teaching, students are hopefully learning. I know I am. It's been intense, but it's been great. So let me know if you guys have any questions for me. And again, like if there's any specific things you want me to bring back to our little group or anything you want me to report out on in the future. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question. You guys go first.
I have answers. Like,
How is lunch going?
okay, so I don't quite know because I'm in mostly second lunch. So I don't know
I don't
how.
know what that means.
Got it. Okay, so our lunch, the way our schedule is lined up, we have first and second lunch. First lunch, you go to your class for a bit, you go to lunch, then you go back to class. Second lunch is you have your full class, then you have lunch. The first lunch currently, if I'm not mistaken, we have some 8th graders in with the first lunch as well, because of the way now that the schedules are lined up to make sure everyone has lunch, which is good. And so I've been told for the most part, not completely, because obviously there's going to be some classes where it's like not possible. They mostly have it so that it's freshmen and maybe sophomores in the first lunch with 8th graders, and almost all the juniors and seniors are in second lunch. Like I only have second lunch this year, so I'm not interacting with 8th graders, which I think makes sense to not have, like.
Is it more crowded? Like, are
I
did
haven't
it
gone
got to be that there were only 2 grades in the?
it last year, like. It's all the grades you basically have half the high school having lunch at one point and then the other half
And then
has the other one.
slash.
But it's commingled between like all the grades. Like as a freshman, I was having lunch with seniors, but now it's more divided lower and upperclassmen. But like it feels a little more crowded, but not like extremely. It's pretty much this from the one lunch I had in there. I've been eating in here. It's been great. Trying to focus on homework, but I haven't heard anyone say it's been too crowded. I feel like if it was too crowded, people would say it. I would hear about it very quickly. Because people like that much.
Yeah, my pool of one, my sophomore, doesn't like having lunch with the 8th graders. Very much.
Doesn't surprise us.
You say my 8th grade boy doesn't. Totally having a bunch of stuff. Exactly. I'm sure it's beautiful, but that's all right, because he has to eat dinner with 33-year-old women, which is himself, so.
Question I have for you is, are you hearing any issues with classes because of scheduling? Like you'll have 2 classes of the same subject, but one is very large, one is very small.
I haven't heard about that for the subject yet. I do know I walked into my first class Spanish first thing on the first day of school, and it was like 26 people. We had to pull another chair and stuff. So it was a little intense, and there's a lot of people. But then I go to my like chemistry class, and there's maybe like 15 of us, and it's like it's so great. But I have heard subject to subject having having people have classes that are like super big and then super small in the same subject. But I'm taking classes where there's like currently I'm taking classes that it's mostly one section is being taught. So I'll look into it and ask around more with especially the freshmen and sophomores. I think that would be more of a thing where you're taking more, like you'll have more sections of the same class being taught. So I will definitely ask around about that.
It'll fall out in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
we'll have a better picture. Because this is only day 3.
Exactly.
Yeah, I bring that up because my sophomore said one of her classes has over 30 students. kind of understanding is there's another section of social class that's like 6.
And that's a really good conversation to have when the high school team is here, because sometimes, I don't know the circumstances, but sometimes it's a function of the cohort that travels together. Sometimes you'll see it like, if you need a certain level of French, well, if there are 15 kids who need French 4, that 15 kids is going to appear as a small section.
Yeah.
So there's sometimes, some of it may be a function of staffing or reduced staffing. Some of it may be a function of student choice and how those choices map to the schedule. So, and some of it is the first 2 weeks of school and people are
In their
just those things. So I think that's a really good conversation to have when Julie's here giving her student update. She should have a couple of weeks lead time in terms of kind of addressing problems and then have a sense of how some of it's shaking out. My understanding, did somebody else have a question before I jump in?
Just for that, I wonder, is there like maximum class size that high school, middle school, whatever it aims for, or is there no cutoff?
We're like
22 is what we talked about. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's a good question. 22 on paper.
Okay.
But then depending on the type of course, I think you might add or subtract to that at the high school. Strangely, our historic document on class size stops at the middle school, so there is no dedicated language to the high school. But we've always applied that 18 to 22 benchmark. Are you finding that? So when I was about, I saw the line. I think I'm understanding that it's not about people not getting what they wanted in their schedule or not having courses. It's about the Aspen issue is Aspen did not take kindly to almost the hand scheduled off the rotation that we have. It wants us that rotation and it doesn't want to deviate. So we have the built schedule template that you know where you're supposed to be, but it won't print schedules that mimic that.
Yeah.
It's caused a lot of stress.
Yeah, and I actually have heard, like, I haven't heard anyone complain about their classes because we got our schedules so early, or our tentative schedules so early last year, at the end of last year, or at least it felt earlier than before, that people had the chance to work things out if they needed to rearrange things. So coming back, it was mostly the stuff that people are looking at their schedule and it's like, wait, where did it actually go? You know?
Yeah.
But it hasn't been a problem of classes at all. That's been great.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you, Megan. Next on the agenda is subcommittee appointments. So the way that we can do this, I believe, remind me, Pam, do we do nominations or do we just go around?
The chair presents the appointments for consideration and a vote of the committee.
So we'll start with the facilities subcommittee. And here I would recommend that we keep continuity with that. And I'd like to nominate John and Teresa for that. Oh, appoint, sorry. If you guys would both accept.
Sure.
Pam, did you get a clarification on negotiations? Something? No.
You want to put polls first, or do you want to do a?
You could keep that as is until
Hmm?
you could keep that as is unless there's somebody else. I don't know if people have emailed you or whatnot, but you could certainly keep negotiation team as is until you get the feedback from the attorney on.
Okay. So then, as long as you're willing to continue on, okay?
Yep, great. So,
With you, Chris?
Yes, for now.
and
Just wanted to double check that they didn't get.
We're supposed to be here, or is that-
We-
is that-
We talked about it. We talked about it. Okay. And then. So for negotiations, we'll keep myself and the kid, as long as it's good with the kid for now.
thanks.
And then for policy and advocacy. I know that you were interested in that.
I am.
So, let's go with that and then. So
is that- I was like, it's-
you're interested as well. So ideally we want to have. One per, well, I guess we had three on.
Three, yeah, well, so we had 3 on it list.
Okay,
Let's share. Teresa did email you about that.
right. So. Let's go with Teresa, Nadia. You guys both good? Yeah,
and then-
And
and Lindsay, yeah. Sorry.
you were already.
I already have Lindsay.
It's negotiations and suppose of the impact of this feeling of the.
So I think that could also make sense. Negotiation team is usually something that, historically. We've traditionally had someone that's been on the committee for a year, only because there can be a lot that goes into that. But that doesn't mean, actually, is there anything against having 3 people on negotiation, or is that too many because of just the nature of?
I don't think that there's anything against it, but I think that having an unbalanced number is going to the towns, to our town leaders, be less advertising.
That makes sense, yeah, I would agree.
See her.
I see something about it, but you're one.
Yeah, they're all open, they were open sessions. We had silent observers, so
Yeah.
it's all responsible. We're also responsible.
Who knows? We'll assume it'll operate similarly next year, but a year or so.
Right.
So for finance subcommittee, Jake, you'd have been doing that before, or you will to continue on? Okay. And then in Manchester side, I think that sort of leaves me. Unless,
I think it's good to have your share of it.
I think so.
When possible. It's not always possible.
right. So that works for you, and then also put my name down on finance. So because you're gonna be busy. Unless you have interest.
No.
And I think again, with finance, I think that traditionally it's something that we usually like to have someone, their second year jump on to finance, right? Because it's quite a bit,
I still-
it took me about 6 months to really get it to understand everything that you're looking at. So it can be quite a bit going through initially. So. All right, so just for the record, for the facilities subcommittee will be John Bernard and Teresa Whitten. For the negotiation subcommittee, and this might have to be updated. It will be David, myself. And then policy will be Lindsay, Nadia, and Teresa. And then finance will be Jake and myself. All right.
we vote on a complete set.
Yep.
Yep.
Then we vote.
Now we,
Accept as presented. Yeah. As presented.
we have a second.
Second.
All those in favor? See you. Thank you. As far as the rest of my chairman's report, again, I've just heard that everything, this has been a great start to the year. So thank you to all of our teachers, all of our staff, all of our parents getting their kids ready to get back into the groove of school. I know we all very much appreciate it. So for anyone that is listening or for anyone that's not, please thank everyone involved in that. And I know just to report out what we did have, 2 workshops this summer, looking to align our year. We have a lot on the table. So I think everyone here is looking forward to getting going. And I guess I'd like to also just officially welcome our 2 newest members. I know you guys started right at the end of last year, but Lindsay Banks and Nadia Smith. So thank you both for your service and joining our committee. And away we go. All right, so for the consent agenda, I didn't have time to just review how we wanted to go through this, Pam. Do we want to do the vouchers first, or this was a couple of?
So you always have the choice to take it apart or do it all together as one package. You might want to just note the donation and then take everything together for efficiency, but you're also welcome to isolate any items and talk about them. So.
Clarifying question, am I the only one who missed the summer workshop meeting that the minutes are for? Was everyone else there? Okay.
Good job.
I don't think we called it, but.
So, let's break this up. And first, I'll take a motion to accept vouchers 1009 through 10011. Do I have a second?
I have a question about that.
Sure.
On the back.
Well,
After we get through a second.
thank you. Any discussion?
Then we discuss, okay,
Discussion.
now, so.
Yes.
So of the donation we're talking about separately,
Yes, this is just the vouchers. The
Got it.
vouchers. Yes.
so. The OPEB contribution is that one I heard. No, and then all my questions are. My questions are.
And Chris, you're winding in the payroll accounts as well.
We'll get to your questions and the budget updates.
Budget updates, okay, great,
That's really about the transfers.
thank you.
Yes, the pay, and I'm sorry, and the. Yes, and the 2 payroll vouchers.
Mhm.
So let's start this again.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
You-
I'll accept, so. I'll make a motion to accept vouchers 1009 through 10011 and also the payroll vouchers. From August 14th, 2025 and August 28th, 2020. Accept. Thank you. Any discussion on that section of our consent agenda?
Question on it, the seaside glass and mirror for the replacement windows. Is that something we would have taken out of small cap if we didn't have the banner revenue, or would we have put that on hold? How would that have?
We probably would put it on hold. It became to the forefront because we had the funding available due to the banners.
Gotcha.
So the banner program is super successful.
Yes.
And we've also had some fencing replaced due to the banner programs. So yes.
I wanted to make sure to say thank you to anyone who's put time and energy into making the banner program happen.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Super successful.
All those in favor? See items, thank you. All right, and secondly, we will go up to authorization to purchase replacement energy heat recovery wheel for our heating system at the middle high school. So I'd like to make a motion that the school committee appropriate the amount of $101,902 from the stabilization fund for the replacement of the energy recovery wheel. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions?
What does this do to our stabilization fund and balance plans, whatever else.
Yep. So right now, our stabilization fund balance is $1,006,000. Last year, we actually had interest income of 72,000, which was great because it replenished the fund a little bit. So our current balance is just over $1 million, and this will bring it down to just over 900,000, 904,593.
So question, why did we require an engineer review of the project?
Just because it was so expensive, we wanted to make sure that this was absolutely needed. The discussions actually started before I arrived here. I guess this energy deal had been damaged probably about 10 years ago. So we've been,
Is during a year of significance,
yes,
snow got in the attic
to the ends.
penthouse.
Yes.
So the engineer review of the project is based on the quote that's taking place, or that was prior to getting quotes into turn, and that determined that we needed this.
Prior to it.
Got it.
Much is that review?
I believe it was $4,000, it's either 4 or 5. We actually did that last year.
Thank you.
So we're saving in our balance, you could deny.
It'll be 904,000 after this litigation.
It's all just make the public service announcement that we're really trying to keep an eye and keep ahead of repairs at the middle high school. It is our newest, well, it's no longer our newest building. It had a long time been our newest building in a brand new building. But we're getting into the 17th year of occupancy, and we're marching toward 2034, which is going to be the halfway through the building. So we should anticipate increased repairs and needs. Just my informal discussion with Andy over the floors and their frustration and how it's harder and harder to keep the flooring in place and maybe with that in place. So I think it's just a not sound an alarm, but start to get people to have it in their frame of consciousness that we are going to have to expend dollars in maintaining the facility and be prepared in 2034 to probably some significant updates and renovations.
On that note, do we have, I mean, I know this was on radar already, and that lots of things are on radar in terms of our planning for budget. Do we have an active preventive maintenance program for all of our facilities, and is that being, I mean, is this in alignment with the expectations for lifespan and such a?
Yes, we do. We take a lot of care with our preventative maintenance. Steve Hunt is fabulous in that regards. This has been on our radar for a long time. Like I said, before I even arrived, they were talking about getting the engineering study done. And this will prolong the life of this energy wheel for our rooftop unit number 1, which is something. Otherwise, this goes down and we're not able to limp it along, and we can have significant issues on portions of it.
What's the replacement cost? Let's put it in perspective.
The whole rooftop unit, I want to say don't hold me to it, but I think we're talking $500,000 each year. So this is just the energy wheel portion of that.
Your original question about so with the new building coming from the MSBA process, when we come online, they come with we'll call it preventative maintenance plan for that building for all of your systems. And that's when Steve's this maintenance supervisor's primary function is to ensure that maintenance plan is being administered every year. So everything from changing the filters, it's the light maintenance, right?
To making sure the units are inspected and yes.
Do our budgets, concerns and struggles each year aren't taking from that preventive maintenance at this point?
No, and I would say it's through the preventative maintenance monitoring that we start to emerge things for consideration for that capital repair list. Sometimes things come, you think you have 10 years and then something happens and escalates or accelerates the timeline. But there are active, just regular maintenance plans in place. And last time, actually, when we submitted, we're getting ready to do it again, but when we submitted to MSBA on Memorial School, we got extra credit points for reimbursement because of the maintenance plans that we have. So it's something that we do very well.
Any other questions or? So all those in favor? Thank you, that's unanimous. Next, I'll make a motion to approve transfers in the amounts of $546,951 and $150,000 from the FY 25 operating budget, the OPEB trust fund. Have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion.
How does this amount meet our commitment? Our annual commitment?
Yes, so let me backtrack a little bit. This is FY 25. This is the year that just closed. We were supposed to bring this up during the summer, or actually probably during June, but unfortunately I was completely out of commission in June. Back full-time now, thank God. So we are retroactively approving the 546,940. That portion is 150,000 less than our commitment for the contract with META. So our contract with META, our obligations total $696,941. That is the calculation that basically states whatever you saved from changing the health insurance plan from Plan A format to Plan B format is this amount of money which you must contribute to, or you agree to contribute to the OPEB fund to reduce our liability. Each year we've done that. Last year, I believe was the first year that this committee took the stance of if our health insurance budget is short by up to 150,000, we will reduce our OPEB contribution by the 150,000. This past year, our health insurance appropriation was short $220,000. So we did dip into that 150,000. That's the best I could tell in June at that time. Like, yes, we don't have full capacity to make the 696,000. So we will make the $546,000 contribution in accordance with the approved school committee budget. We did that. Since then, I have been closing the FY 25 books, which we will talk about in a little bit. And we do have surplus in other lines which could cover the health insurance shortfall. So therefore, we would not need to take it necessarily out of the OPEB contribution. So I recommend that we vote the OPEB contribution in the total amount of the 696,000, which is our agreement, or not mandated, but our suggested contribution in accordance with our agreement. And we use the surplus in our retirement assessment line and other utility lines to cover the health insurance shortfall. So this does not have any impact on the FY 26 budget. The only thing that this would have an impact on is any free cash calculation. If we do not vote the additional 150,000, that will default to free cash this current year. So I would recommend we vote the whole $696,941 into the.
Jake?
Could we table this vote until we see that everything you're talking about, where all these funds are coming from? In other words, are we gonna see that when we get to the budget update?
No,
Oh, okay.
no, I'm not done closing my FY 25 books yet. Not necessarily for another month.
Any other questions?
So we're expecting really be questioning statutes. Are we in favor of utilizing that overage for this past commitment versus letting it go into free cash? Correct.
And it is an overage. It's not coming out of the operating.
Well, you made an earmarked reduction to your contribution in OPEB to close the gap. What Michelle's reporting is surplus on other unanticipated surplus on other lines allow us not to make that reduction. So if you reduce the OPEB contribution beyond what the contract language recommends. You're basically taking from that line and moving it into your E&D accounting. So that's why Michelle is recommending, that's not really the purpose of E&D. You have other funds to transfer to cover it, so you should make your full OPEB contribution. And let E&D truly be what it is, any general fund excess.
And that's also more in the spirit of having that flexibility, that interface, if needed, not.
And that's
You know,
happened.
OPEB is something we want to pay off as soon as possible because it costs us in the long term.
And we have done OPEB one other time, a similar thing happened, which is we were able to use other line surpluses at the end of the year to cover expenditure overages and other operational lines to make full contributions.
So it sounds like it was a successful strategy of using it to get the budget we needed, and now we are finding funds that allow us to fill that back up.
Yes. And normally the timing of this would be in the June timeframe. As you know, I was not available in June. So normally this type of vote would be by the 30th. We know what our surplus is at that time.
Okay, so all those in favor? See those, thank you. All right, so for the minutes, we have our final meeting from last year, and then also.
I think you did the June meeting at the July.
We did.
Did the June minutes of the July meeting, and these are the July minutes. Which are just action minutes.
So what was the date in July?
The 10th, some.
So I'll make a motion to accept meetings from July 10th, our meeting on July. Second, thank you. All those in favor?
Could I just make one quick comment?
Sure.
It's just a quick formatting thing at the bottom of like the workshop notes. It was like a negotiations update or something. It's just formatted as if it's part of the workshop. It just needs to be kind of pulled out. So it's, so people can see it doesn't change any content. It's just,
All of us in favor? Those abstain? Thank you. Lisa. Okay. So, for the donation, is it just a motion to accept this donation? Yeah. So I will make a motion to accept a donation from the Manchester-Essex Athletic Boosters in the amount of $6,000, and the Manchester-Essex Regional High School Gridiron Club of $2,000 for the use in renewing our HMLD subscription for the 25-26 academic year. And a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
the question, is the $13,000 subscription something that's typically in our athletic budget? So this is offsetting something we've already planned for, or is this separate?
No, for last year and this year, we only appropriated $5,000. So the donations are to pick up the cost above what we have to spend.
Okay.
I believe these donations were known at that time. That's why we're planning to.
It's not like we're trying to find $5,000.
No, no.
Yeah.
We planned 5,000 in our operating committee. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you to these groups.
Yes.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Thank you, that's unanimous.
These donations, can I just, well, we're saying thank you. I just wanted to extend a thank you. Muffin isn't on, so I'll probably do this again on the 16th, but I had some correspondence with Muffin over the course of the summer and just wanted to acknowledge the Hooper Fund and the contributions that they've made to the district. I think going back to 2017, they're in excess of $100,000. The board was all of our groups, so that's just direct to the district. So everything from robotics and drama to athletics, just supporting all kinds of efforts for us to extend student activity opportunities to kids. And I believe they're going to be teaming up with some other partners to help us get our scoreboard. And that's going to be coming again. And just acknowledging, in addition to the direct contributions, that there's over $50,000 to like our PTOs and the arts pack and different groups that indirectly, they are also indirectly supporting us through our parent organization. So they're a group that doesn't end up in the letter a lot because sometimes their contributions are small, but the accumulated contribution is pretty amazing over the last few years. So
Can you say the total again? Sorry.
it's in, I can give you a spreadsheet. But it's in excess of $100,000 since 2017 direct to the schools, over $50,000 to PTOs, MEPAC, I'm sorry, FOMEPA, as Friend of Essex. Just a shout out. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
So I believe that completes our consent agenda. Fantastic. So moving on to our subcommittee reports. I believe the Finance Committee does not have a report and hasn't met. Policy Committee does not have a report and hasn't met. The negotiation team has not met. So we do have a report from our facilities subcommittee. And I think Pam, you were going to mainly report out on that.
Yeah, I embedded it in my supers report, so you want me to just launch and deal with.
No, actually, real quick, I had something to bring up, just a question on the facilities. I was wondering if there's just been any additional talk or discussion about nets at the Coach Ed field to protect the wetlands.
Last conversation I had was with Jess, and they were going to be looking into some opportunities through one of the community grants. Our software popped in the other day, but I was in a meeting, so I didn't connect with her on that, but I can go back to them. So that was probably spring of last year was the last conversation.
Excellent.
So nope, it's on the radar, but I don't think any significant progress is.
Okay. So then we'll move right into our superintendent's report.
Okay, and I'm going to close with Essex building project team report only because it's probably the lengthiest piece. I'm just covering, so we weren't able to get together in August, so this is a little bit of the end of summer update, and then as we get into 16, we've only, like I said, been back 3 days, so a lot of things are still settling in. So I'll give you a quick summer report, and then we can get into what our biggest project over the summer was, which was Essex building project. So just to echo Chris's sentiments, the start to the year was really great. Smooth, with the exception of the beginning of the year glitches, like we had a big bus in the first day of school. The schedules didn't print correctly, but I think all very normal and expected little glitches for the beginning of the year, but spirits were high. People, I think, were very excited to be back. And there seems to be a real excitement about the projects that are on our plate for the coming year, everything from our PD focus to the Essex building project. So we hope everybody will try to find some time. I know it's still we're half foot in summer and half foot in fall. There's a lot of sports starting to kick up, but we have open houses coming up. Might be a little hard to see. High school gets us started this week, Thursday night with its first open house, and then we have one every week throughout September. So we hope folks will try to find the time to come in, meet the teachers, meet the staff. Every open house reflects the personality of the school to a certain degree. So I think they're a lot of fun, and it's a great way to kick off the year. We had a great launch to the year, so I think most people know by now, we kind of do a step in, start to the school year. So our first week for students is 2 days for staff, 2 days for students. Then we go to the 4-day week after the long weekend. And next week's the big long first 5-day week of the year. But in that opening week, we bring teachers back in the first 2 days. We do a combination of building-based orientations, full district orientations. The week prior, we have all of the new staff in and just take them through their expectations and give them some time to get acclimated to where things are, how things work, what the technology is in the district. We conduct our trainings. We do our mandated trainings, which is required of everyone. And then, you know, Chris did a wonderful job on welcoming the staff back. We have our, on second day for staff, we have our all district meeting. And for people who may have worked in education before, that's typically the first morning, and kind of trends come back to that 8 o'clock meeting. Well, way back, we had a hurricane and we had to postpone the first day of school. So we did a come if you can day. We moved our big opening breakfast to the second day, and it just kind of stopped. Because staff gets to get to their classrooms first, they take care of their school business, they get that piece out. They still need more time, but by the time we get to the second day, there's just a little bit, it's a little bit more relaxed feeling. So what we do at that breakfast is, you know, we do service awards, we acknowledge our new staff, and we talk a little bit about the importance of our jobs and what our focus will be for the year. So we set up the staff to understand that this year, our focus is going to be kind of closing out the new installation of the district improvement plan, the focus on building instructional capacity. Our PD focus will be AI and new technologies and how we adapt to those technologies and leverage them for the positive and not just dwell on the negative. So what we did to try to model that was we asked, it's one of the few days a year that we get everybody together across the district. So we had them at tables in different teams doing a quick review of our objectives and student impacts for the district improvement plan, and then sharing their feedback and using AI to generate in the moment assessment of their responses. So that actually sparked a conversation. Were you still there for that? It's a conversation we probably could have gone on and on with, but you know, it helped. You could see right away the gamut of, well, can't we just outright refuse AI to, you know, how can we make the most of this? So it kind of gave Heather a sense of the spectrum of interest that we have and concern that we have, but also gave us some great feedback to do some fine tuning to the district improvement. So originally the 2nd was going to be the day that we brought it to this group for feedback. It'll be the 16th now. So everything is basically pushed out 2 weeks to accommodate our change from the August 19th meeting to today. So I think, again, it was a really good and positive meeting, and everyone's getting excited about the Essex Elementary Building Project and it coming to fruition, and us getting into that phase of thinking about what it could look like and what the program will be and how it can reflect what some of our instructional goals are. The other big project, so a lot of our time in the summer is just closing, closing out the year behind us, reflecting on what our takeaways are and starting to build for the future and kind of setting up to be ready to receive staff when they come back. So that culminates on that day. Part of that work is hiring. And even though we weren't adding new positions, we have every year you have a significant number of people who are either retiring or resigning. Most people are moving on to either a new chapter in their life or married and relocating. So much of it is positive. So overall, we hired 9 teachers, 7 teaching assistants, with 1 open vacancy, which we'll talk about in a minute. The payroll manager, Tom, moved to South Carolina, so we were able to find a replacement for him. She'll be starting first week of October. And of course, we were very lucky to find Elizabeth Taylor, Betty Taylor, who is our interim middle school principal and has done a fantastic job out of the gate. She's really a wonderful addition, very seasoned, lots of experience. Great. I think she's bringing to us some comparative knowledge. She's a long time at Beverly, everything from theater director and English teacher to assistant principal and principal at Beverly High School. She was most recently the interim principal at Andover Middle School and also did a stint as the high school principal at Andover. So we're really trying to pick her brain and learn a lot from her. And she's just been wonderful and brought in established relationships with many students who are now parents or teachers who have migrated to elsewhere in the year. So I think it was a pretty successful hiring season. I think principals are really pleased with the people that they're bringing on. And you know, when we meet with the new staff, we get really excited because we're looking for the new ideas that they can bring to us, and we are here to support them and integrating into our system. So very exciting, as always. So I think we were on track with hiring with what our expectations were and what we laid out in the spring, with the exception of, we need to add a position, a special ed position because of a movement over the summer, but we're going to cover that in the FY26 budget. So this is just a report out on what we anticipated we would be doing over the summer. And then just a really quick look. We don't have to get into the details on this unless you have a burning question, but this is just a snapshot of what we're looking at for the fall. You know, everything for the building project and feasibility study. And you will hear us talk a lot about that because this is probably, for the school side, the busiest time period or the busiest piece of that schedule in terms of deliverables. We're working on the district improvement plan. We're going to work, we have an end of October deadline to establish the graduation determinations. That looks scary. The competency determination is going to be the local substitute for MCAS, right? We can no longer use MCAS as the determination of competencies established. The competencies that the state says we need to have students meet. So we're going to need to come up with local measures. MASC has come out with a template policy. So we have taken our local work and we're putting it into that document, and we'll have that for you on the 16th. You've heard us talk a lot about ClearGov over the years. We are moving forward this fall and moving toward their budgeting software, which will help us, I think, develop a more robust budget book in the spring if all goes as planned. But that's a lot of formatting and reformatting. So that's a time consumer. We're going to be shopping for an insurance broker and potentially putting out an RFS for or request for services for an auditor, just to ensure that we're getting best pricing. And we learned very late last week that we'll be engaging in an IRS audit, which comes with a lot of people that understand. So those are some of the things on our to-do list. And just a couple of noteworthy pieces. Over the summer, it was announced that we received the DESE Early Literacy Grant. So we are going to be participating in the high dosage tutoring program that comes with some resources for our elementary students. We are launching Parent Square. You probably already received your communications about that. Parent Square is our first step. This year is our first step into it. There's quite a suite of tools that we could use over time, but if you had student athletes last year, you may have been familiar with Sports U, which was an app that coaches were using to communicate with their team members around changes in dates and locations and practice times. And it meets all of the requirements that a school district has to meet in terms of archiving messaging, recording messaging, and ensuring the safety of students and teachers and their communication tools. So we thought for a moment that that might be something we could use cross district, but it really did not fit for classroom use or student activity use. It was very heavily geared toward the sports world. We thought we might be able to convince them to pilot with us, expanding their tools, but they weren't ready to do that yet. So we were able to get into the Parent Square world by reducing our Zoom account allocation and funding Parent Square with those resources. And what we're hoping for in the first year, this is a pretty long introduction, is we want to ensure that everyone is clear that they should not be, and no one is using a personal device to communicate with students or parents. As a public employee, all of your communications are public. So people shouldn't be using their personal devices. And there are a whole host of other concerns that go with private communications between adults and students. Even though we assume best intent, it's everything from we're all going on a field trip and we don't have a school issued phone. So this allows you to download an app to your phone and create group communication texts with the members of your team, the members of your student activity, your class, if you're traveling, on a field trip, and everything is archived and recorded, and copied to the appropriate supervisors. So it's just a safer way. We were schooled in that, we lived for quite a while saying, well, we have Aspen and we have Google and everything, through email. I mean, everyone impressed upon us that email isn't a thing anymore, and that's not really how people communicate. So that text format is what people would prefer to live. So we are hopeful that after living with it in this realm for a bit, we can start to look at some of the other tools. I think probably by mid-year, we'll start to experiment with some newsletter functionality that it has. So exciting for us. And then you already took care of this for me. We are relaunching, we are relaunching Off and Away and reestablishing and communicating clearly to students and staff and parents expectations around cell phones. I think what we learned from the conversation last year is what we think we're doing, what people think we're doing, or students or teachers think they're doing may not all be on the same page. So it's reestablishing the clear expectations, communicating it to parents and students, and then working with people to enforce it. I think middle school had done quite a bit of work around that. Elementary is kind of relaunching and rebranding and making sure it's clear to everybody. And the high school has moved toward ensuring that the classrooms have the shoe trees and that people are working toward consistently implementing the expectation that they are offered away in class. So details should be in newsletters and communications from parents to students and parents about what the specific school expectations.
To Maggie's point, is there, especially for high schoolers, was there an attempt to explain why?
Have you had all your class meetings yet?
We had one and it was brought up briefly, but nothing like in depth.
Okay.
It was mentioned. It was also mentioned that things like smartwatches could be something that would be asked to put away, but we're in the first 3 days of school. It hasn't really, my teachers only today actually started enforcing it. The first 2 days they told us, we're not even gonna think about this until we get to Tuesday. So there was very minimal bringing it up. But technically it was mentioned. For the people who were listening.
Yeah, because I'm thinking more in terms of,
Last meeting. I didn't have you that.
in years as adult, you're
Yeah.
soon to be adults. And so, given it's a change, I'm less concerned about middle school, but for high school, given it may be a little bit of a change for some students. At least giving them explaining there's a difference.
Makes sense. I can reinforce that.
Are we doing questions on
Yeah.
up to this point? Is that-
Sweet.
The building stuff is gonna be.
Yeah, we can do building separate. So questions?
Okay. Any questions for Pam? Teresa?
I have two questions.
Questions?
One, I know we discussed, we have a little bit of a heads up from our midday meeting, but for anyone paying attention online, the topic of the IRS audit might be jarring. Could you just give any little bit of information that you can offer? What we've got, which is minimal.
We're getting used to not using email. We got snail mail at the end of last week. It's just a packet that came certified mail with some documents in it from the IRS. And we do get IRS packages and we have to fill out reports. And I said, Michelle, looks like we got some of those papers you're going to have to fill out. And we dig through it. And we found out
They're not so standard papers.
it's not such good papers. So what we know is that we have been identified for an audit of some of our payroll function. We know nothing more than that at this time. Michelle has put that call into them right now. And we'll have a phone meeting with them to get some clarity as to what is this random? Is this standard? Is there something specific that triggered it? So we probably will have more detail about the why if they provide it for us. I think what we know in looking at the paperwork is that it's a significant amount of fact gathering and paper producing. The payroll functionality covers everything from Medicare withdrawals to how people structure their 403B withdrawals, 1099 forms. So it's that It's the things that touch the IRS. It doesn't have much to do with our any fund.
It's employee benefits, travel allowances, all kinds of things. So it's even gonna get into policies and procedures. It goes deep.
Well, convenient that we're hearing from our auditor tonight on the heels of this. And then my second question is, when it came to mind when you showed the open house dates, we have two new members, and it's probably a good refresher briefly. There are so many, events throughout the school year that we are invited to go to both as parents, but also we are frequently told that as school committee members, we can go to these. I'm thinking Essex Elementary, we don't have an EES parent on the board at this point. So if there is any advice about wearing our parent hat versus our school committee hat and kind of what is appropriate for us if we're going in our role as school committee, observing and supporting versus as a parent.
I would say any of these are good to attend. They're community open houses, really. We specialize in parents and families, but anyone is welcome to come in and listen and see. And every school is different. Essex has become a little bit more of an open house and less of a curriculum back to school night the past few years. So it feels, if you've been to the memorial open houses, it's a little bit more along that line. But still in the spirit of Essex. So if you come to the middle high school, for those of you who have done it, you can share, you follow the schedule, and it's a little bit more of meet your students' teachers, but we can give someone a random schedule and they're welcome to pop in and hear what goes on in any of the classes. So for this fall, we'd love to have somebody pop in Essex and say hi and jump in here. It's fun.
Any advice on, I don't know if you guys have the NASC training series yet? Okay.
October, we want to provide to.
I just think, well, we don't have like a group expectation, part of our norms, I don't think, but I'm just thinking of when I go to something as a school committee member, I'm in an observation mode and supporting the people there and not taking from it, but that's me. I think it's effective. When I'm in as a parent, I'm there as Maggie and Calvin's mom. I'm not there as school committee member Teresa Wing. So if you have any guidance on this, as we have two new members, and I think it's fair to give the
Yeah, it's tricky. It is a tricky line to walk with sometimes. I often start my emails with popping in from my personal email account right now. Just in order to sort of set that expectation that this is about my child, and my expectation is that I will be treated like any other parent, and that I'm not going to be expecting a conversation that any other parent would not be having. Teacher at back to school night or via email or whatever.
Maybe it doesn't need to be
No,
big, but
and I
you know where it's.
I would say most, like if you went to a back to school night and you were displeased with something a teacher said about what was happening during the year, I would say follow the same rule of thumb that you wear your parent hat. So talk to the teacher, call the teacher, make an appointment with the teacher. If that's not satisfactory, you go to the principal. If that's not satisfactory, most of it stops there in terms of authority over classroom changes. That shouldn't become a school committee issue. If the principal is rude, disrespectful, dismissive, won't meet with you, then the next step on the chain is you call the superintendent's office, because of, as a parent, you deserve to have that conversation. So that's, I would just say it's with your parent hat on, that's kind of the chain of command you would follow. I think it's very hard to completely divorce kind of your knowledge of the systems and where something may be triggering, oh, we are talking about this in terms of a system improvement or a system glitch, or they think it's going really well, but from a parent perspective, it isn't going so well. Then sometimes a conversation either with a peer on this group about what's the entry point is a good place to start, or I'm happy to have that conversation too. So that we kind of keep the policy and systems work at the committee level, but our experience is every day. I mean, I do the same thing. I mean, I'll be, visiting a school to do a thing and see something else. And sometimes I have to stop myself because I'm like, oh, this needs to I need to wait and observe and see if this hits the systems level because this could be a glitch. So it's just always kind of find your trusted partner to bounce things off of. And then we can find a way to introduce them into the overall district improvement planning if you're starting to see what you have come accustomed to. Like if you're seeing a one-off, it's probably a one-off. If you're getting to 15 different dots on your map, it's probably time for us to start having a conversation because there's a trend starting to emerge. Is that helpful in any way? Probably. Just ask. Probably is the best answer.
Just opening the dialogue.
Yeah.
Since they haven't had a chance to have that training.
But again, if we go, like, I'm gonna attend my high school and middle school, open house, I do every year, and my daughter's well, that's totally fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
In other districts, I think you hear stories of people sometimes who will want an outcome for their child and start to speak about the position that they hold and the sway that they hold. And that has never ever occurred here to my knowledge. I don't think it would, but I think that's what we always just wanted. Conversations I've had with people who are new. Sometimes it's nothing that you're doing as a member, but the fact that you are a member and how people perceive that and that their impact on you. Took me a long time, even in how like, sometimes you don't think about the other hat that you wear, but somebody else. So it just maybe needs to help.
If you have any questions, ask Emery.
I'll stop. Any other questions? Your Talk Essex Building Project?
Yes.
This was one of our bigger projects over the summer. We had two key meetings over the summer with MSBA to identify and be assigned our designer, and we have closed out that phase. So it was July the 29th and August 12th were our two MSBA meetings. And we went as a delegation. It was me, Michelle, Gordon Brewster from the SBC. We went to represent the SBC's position about who they thought would be the appropriate architect, which we call the designer for our project. We went through the RFS process managed by Gordon Whittier. We thought we were going to get a large number of applicants because of the turnout at the walkthroughs. It ended up being a much smaller number, 3. The committee established a subcommittee to review them. Subcommittee reviewed and reported back, and it was the determination of the committee that JCJ was the best fit, but there was also interest in thinking. What was the second firm? There's a secondary firm that also had extensive MSBA. It'll come to me. MSBA experience that we knew we would have to go to MSBA and have interviews done. And the committee had stated that they would be interested in this architectural firm.
La Valley.
Valley.
Thank you.
So we went with that message. They heard us, but insisted on putting forward the third group, which is, I'm getting Marianne Thompson firm, to promote them having experience coming to interviews for me. So I think when we did the initial ranking at MSBA, it was very clear what the preference was. It was clear what the second was, but we were pre-warned that in going through this process, they often want to give opportunity to some firms that have a hard time breaking into the process. So we went in to the interview session on the 12th, and that's when they do their presentation, thinking we would hear from 3 firms. La Valley declined the invitation to present, and Marianne Thompson did present. And after all said and done with commentary and ranking, JCJ clearly was the best fit candidate, and they awarded them to us. So JCG attended the meeting on August 26th. They are officially on board. So we have completed the forming the project module of the MSBA process, which is very exciting because that means the work really starts now. So we talk about this whole, sometimes we talk about, if you're looking at that chart, the forming the team and feasibility study all together. But there's really the pre-work to get to do the feasibility study. And the color coding on the chart, the blue is kind of the work the district does. And then the green is the work that the professionals do. So part of forming the team is we do the first part of identifying the OPM and taking ourselves through the RFS process. Then they come on board and they manage the process of helping us identify the designer. And then it all gets handed over to them and we become part of the process, not the organizer and driver of the process, because it starts to get very technical. So moving from forming the project team into feasibility, this fall, we're going to be engaging in what they call the preliminary design program. So that's a lot of the fact gathering. It's envisioning around the school district. It's putting together the educational plan, which feeds the facilities scope. So they can determine what kind of facility we need based on how we conduct business. There'll be several community meetings. To Nina's point, I'll speak to that in a second. So it's like getting shot out of a cannon in terms of the amount of time, energy, and product we are going to have to put together between now and December. But once we have the preliminary piece, which helps us to narrow down the feasibility options to one for which they can start to put preferred schematic design together. So the next slide might help you get a sense of where this is going. Probably a little hard to see. Maria, can you close the box on the right-hand side? Might give us a little bit of space. So what's in gray is what we've already accomplished, and we're just off of our initial timeline. So we've accomplished all that's in gray, and now we're moving into the actual feasibility study proper and beginning on the design. So we're going to look at existing conditions, site development, the ED program, and develop preliminary alternatives, which is the language around. You have to look at renovation. You have to look potentially at renovation and add. You have to vet all of the potential sites that there are, and they have to vet the three components of a feasibility study. And find any potential alternatives. So that's the piece we are in now. And we will have completed, the game plan is to have a preferred schematic design pretty much by the end of the year. So that's the work we're going to do. And it's a very public process.
Started down
Yeah.
end of calendar year or end of school year?
End of the school year. So May, end of May. So this gives you a sense of the frequency of building committee meetings. This was just determined last Tuesday, so we are not yet publicizing our community events because we're trying to lock in and ensure that all of these dates work for all of the members. So as soon as we have this totally locked, we're going to start promoting the October 8th meeting, which is about a month out, which will be an information meeting. That meeting is going to be a bigger version of what I've just given you here, led by the OPM and the designer to explain to the community what the process is for making determinations on site options in the feasibility study, and then design options for your preferred schematic design, how that works, how the community will have input into it. And it's an opportunity for the community to ask questions. As we get into the second and third community meeting, those will start to be feedback sessions for options, start to report out on things like site, whether or not, what we found and how the different configuration scenarios were evaluated, kind of the effectiveness and efficiency of some of the ideas in the feasibility study. So those are all guided. Remember, we're in the green section now. Those are guided by the design. So the designer is going to take that scope of feasibility, work with us as members of the community, and start to vet the ideas and try to close in on one scenario and feasibility for further development. questions? Thank you.
Do you want to address Nina's question about who owns the website updates? and
Oh,
stuff?
sorry, I forgot about that. So our OPM Dora Moodier owns the website on our behalf. And I'm happy to, if you have, Nina, if there are specific things that you're looking for, please just send along an email. We will relay that to them. I think they are trying to mimic the content that was on the memorial site, which pretty much has all of the reports and findings. So I'm happy to send along or try to find any of the documents that you think should be up there. And like I said, I think once the communication subcommittee meet, they're going to come up with a promotion strategy for the October 8th meeting.
Is, I noticed all the meetings are at the Essex Elementary cafeteria. But the building project needs to pass in both towns. I wanted to float the idea of holding a meeting, maybe one of those, maybe adding a meeting in Manchester so that Manchester residents can easily access the information and get informed and get so that they can have what they need to.
We have, well, when we get together with the communication subcommittee, strategies we've used in the past is a morning and an evening session, one in one location, one in the other, multiple sessions throughout. So I think we need to vet that with members from both districts. So that's what the SMC subgroup for communications.
But they have their own communications. Got it.
Our first meeting will be sometime next week. They went out today to figure out the date.
Yeah, just an idea. I understand we're needing to hold the majority of the meetings in Essex. It makes a lot of sense, and Manchester people should absolutely just drive to Essex and learn about it. But
I think part of what we're doing too is trying to, as much as possible, mimic the template of what was done for Memorial.
yeah,
So if that's what was done for Memorial, you'll end up seeing that in this template too,
that's
for fairness.
And I think thinking is you need to drive people into the facility so that they can see it. And a lot of times there's a tour before the community meeting, so you can get people down into the boiler room, in the basement project room.
Dungeon.
I was gonna cough. Yeah, I mean, so
what's the smell? Yeah. No.
it's very damp now, so I think just getting people in to see the state of the ceiling tiles and to see the state of the flooring and to.
But don't look up with your eyes, only if you're wearing glasses.
Oh, my God.
There was a video that was it,
That's
the
coming.
principal did in the elementary school, pointing out, or one of the teachers did, very well done. Pointing out at the old memorial.
Yeah, that's all coming up. So I think one of the challenges is with the memorial, we know what's like from the memorial, it's close enough in time that we know what's coming. And we're starting to get to the point where some of those things get rolled out. So even myself, sometimes I'm feeling like, well, we're behind, we have to get going faster, but we are actually going at a very healthy pace and we have not missed. We got set back by, we wanted to be in the April, but that was overly ambitious and MSBA said slow down. So we're right on track. And a lot of that piece is, when I say we're going to get shot out of a cannon, it's going to get very busy, very fast. These are all of the things that are going to start to roll out.
Thank you for that update.
You're welcome.
Any specific questions? I think this is really just an update, so.
If you haven't looked at some of the slides that I sent you from, they've got some really nice. It's starting to get exciting because as part of their presentation, they gave some design concepts. They are certainly not recommendations, but what they did was take some of the themes from this building that were carried through to Memorial School and carried them through to Essex, but used the character, the culture, the landscape, for lack of a better word, of Essex, and came up with a model that had pull-throughs, but its own character that was more reflective of the community. So I just, I think they did a really nice job to present kind of what could be a very unique set of options.
Yes.
Exciting. That came from the designer. That came from the designer. They needed to present that to MSBA, so the concept work. They presented that at the the meeting on the 26th, and I included the slide decks and.
Thank you, Ken.
I'll stop off.
So moving on to our continued business, next up is our audit report.
So they'll tell me to take at least an hour. Sound good? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'll try to get through it as quick as I can. I'm sure everybody's ready to get out of here. Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to present the results of the audit. I'd just like to start off by thanking the superintendent, assistant superintendent of finance, the data analyst, treasurer, rest of the finance team. Everybody was great about getting us the meeting to complete the audit, answering our questions. No issues whatsoever. The delay on the audit was all, from our end. We had 2 mergers last year, went from Powers and Sullivan to Markham in February of 24, and then in November of 24, Markham merged with CBIZ, and so we were drinking out of a fire hose as well, kind of like getting shot out of a cannon. We had a lot of stuff on our plate, and definitely had our hands full and challenges and everything, and kind of working our way to get back to where we were. But it's it's a lot of change going from a 30-person firm to like a 10,000-person firm. That's like a national firm. So appreciate everybody's patience and everything with us, and just let you know that we're working very hard to try to get things back to where we were. There's 3 reports that came out with the audit. There was a financial statements, and then something called the governance letter, and then a management letter. The governance letter is considered to be a required communication, so I thought I could just go through that real quick and highlight some things for you. And then I can move on and just give you some financial highlights and then answer any questions you might have. First part of it just talks about our responsibilities as the auditors under generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards. And I mean, the most significant responsibility is the expression of an opinion on the financial statements and whether they're fairly stated in accordance with GAAP. And based on all the work and everything that we did, we were able to issue an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion, best you can get. It means that your financial statements were fairly stated, which is great. Next paragraph talks about the plan, timing, scope of the audit. I'm not going to read through that one. But one thing I do want to highlight is below the second paragraph, it talks about management override of controls being considered a significant risk in the audit. And that's nothing unique to Manchester-Essex Regional School District. That's something that's considered to be a significant risk in all of the audits that we do. It's just, part of the nature of the audit. It means management has the authority in the discretion over internal controls that creates the potential for fraud. And also it's difficult to detect misstatements that are perpetrated that way. And so to respond to that, we end up trying to incorporate elements of unpredictability into the audit. So we try to bring new procedures each year and look at different things just so that management doesn't kind of get in a rhythm of knowing what we're going to be looking at, what we're going to be asking for, that kind of thing. We look at journal entries, and we use a data service center to help identify journal entries that might be considered suspicious. I don't want to tell you what criteria we use. But there's different criteria that's used that basically upload all the transactions that have occurred, and they can go through and give us back a list and say, hey, these are the things that you definitely want to focus on. So that's another part of it. It's assigning experienced staff to the engagement, reviewing estimates for bias, evaluating rationale for significant estimates or unusual transactions. Next paragraph talks about independence. Sorry, I skipped over a section here. Next section talks about qualitative aspects of accounting practices, and it talks about management being responsible for selecting significant accounting policies. And you can find the significant accounting policies in note 1 of the financial statements. There were no new policies adopted during the year. in the application of existing policies was not changed. Next paragraph talks about accounting estimates and how they're an integral part of the financial statements. The most significant estimates in the financial statements relate to the net pension liability, net OPEB liability, and depreciation of fixed assets. We review the underlying assumptions and methodologies that are used to come up with those estimates, and we found them all to be reasonable in relation to the financial statements as a whole. So no issues with any of the assumptions that are used in those estimates. Difficulties encountered in performing the audit. Happy to report there were no difficulties in dealing with management while performing the audit. Everybody was great, as I said. Independence, as part of the audit, we perform what is considered to be some non-attest services. So that's essentially, and this is, typical in government audits throughout the state. We prepare the financial statements basically for management, from management's records, and it includes, consolidating funds into governmental funds, recording certain accruals, but it's all based on information that's provided to us. So management gives us the underlying financial statements, then gives us the supporting documentation. So it's really like a clerical function, but our auditing standards make us go through a process to kind of list out the non-attest services that we perform, and then to confirm that we're still independent, even though we're doing that work. And so there are no issues with our independence based on our analysis. Corrected and uncorrected misstatements. Just talks about any type of adjustments that might have needed to be booked as a result of the audit. There were a few things for like warrants payable and some of the education grants where we proposed some entries. They actually didn't need to be recorded by management because they'll just get reversed out as part of next year's audit. So no errors or anything like that we came across that needed to be corrected in the records. So that was good. Disagreements with management. That would be disagreements related to financial accounting, reporting, or auditing matters that might have come up during the audit. Again, happy to report no such disagreements occurred. Management representations. We require management to provide us with probably about 6 pages worth of representations about different things, just to make sure that everything has been disclosed to us, that we have all the information that we needed. And so we have a signed copy of the management representation letter, and we get that for every audit that we issue. Always have. And then management consultations with other independent accountants. This is essentially like getting a second opinion. And if something like that comes up and it's related to like the audit opinion or implementing a new standard or something like that, the firm that you might have been seeking out additional guidance from, our standards just require them to consult with us to make sure they have all the relevant facts. So there's nothing wrong with it. You can do it, but they just need to have all the information that is relevant. And to my knowledge, there was no such consultation that occurred. So those are really the things in the governance letter that I wanted to highlight for you. Everybody's still awake, so that's a good thing. So I'll just go through some financial highlights for you. Always talk about general fund balance. That's usually like a big focus. That's where your E&D is generated from, and it's where the rating agencies look to. That's kind of where you can tell how the overall financial health of the school is doing. And the fund balance for the general fund totaled $3.6 million at the end of the year. 105 of that was restricted to debt service. 1.5 million is committed for capital stabilization, so that gets reported as a component of the general fund in the financial statements, but it gets segregated out in fund balance, so it's not part of your unreserved fund balance. Shows up as committed. 126,000 is related to encumbrances, and then there was another 350,000 of E&D that was voted to fund the 2025 budget, so that also gets reported as assigned fund balance. So it's not in your unassigned. It's basically pulling all that stuff out, and then the ending amount that you're left over with is your unassigned. That was 1.6 million. That number usually approximates your E&D. It represented about 4% of expenditures. E&D is limited to 5% of your next year's budget. E&D was certified at 1.4 million. That was about 339,000 under the DOR limit. So no issues there with having to return any money back to the communities. The funds were managed well. General fund operations, this is kind of looking at your budgetary results. You ended up with a decrease of $192,000 in your budgetary fund balance for the general fund. Revenues came in 302 over budget, and that was mainly related to investment income, having a good year for investment income. And your expenditures were about 18,000 under budget, so right in line with what you appropriated there. And those results indicate that your budget's well planned and you know effective controls in place. Those increases were also offset by the use of E&D. You voted 287,000 of E&D to fund the 24 budget. Another 13,000 of the debt reserve was used. That will keep getting whittled down each year until that debt reserve is gone. School choice fund, end of the year with $278,000 in the fund. That was down from 1.5 million in the prior year. You got in about 838,000 in school choice payments during the year. And you used about 852,000 for operations, and then another 1.2 to me looked like a one-time expenditure for the athletic fields. So I'm sure that was all well planned out, everything, but those funds, the remaining funds in there are available for expenditure without further appropriation by the school committee. Long-term debt, didn't issue any new debt. Long-term debt during the year, you have 39.7 million outstanding at the end of the year, and you paid down 2.5 million in principal payments. Short-term debt, you have 1.3 million outstanding for the Memorial Elementary School project. That note came due after year end, and then a couple $100,000 of it was paid down, and the rest of it got rolled over. Other post-employment benefits liability, I know this came up in your conversations. That liability increased by 672,000 during the year, in total 24.1 million. Continue to use a discount rate of 7.5%, which is, that's definitely on the high side. That's considered to be a fully funded rate, and it's great that you are able to use it, because you have to, you know, have a sufficient amount of money in your trust fund to be able to qualify to use that fully funded rate. And you know, 1% change in that rate can have a really big impact. There's actually a note disclosure in the financials. It's called sensitivity analysis that will tell you if your discount rate was 1 percentage point lower, your liability would be this. If it was 1 percentage point higher, it would be this. And honestly, I didn't look at it, so I can't tell you what the change is. But if you're interested, you definitely want to have that rate as high as you can. It really helps out a lot with the liability. Good news is you were considered to be 19.9% funded at the end of the year, which was up from the prior year of 17.3%. So you're still making progress towards funding that liability, which is great to see. And Manchester-Essex was one of the first school districts in, I would say, the Commonwealth that was started funding this. And I would say that you're, further along than probably any regional school district that I audit or deal with. So you're kind of setting the standard from that standpoint, which is great. And I know that a lot of others, some communities have come along, more slowly, and there's still a few out there that haven't started funding it, but there are much fewer that haven't funded it these days, and they're actually funding it. But you're definitely at the head of the line on that one, just as far as being proactive and funding that early. You put another 605,000 into the fund in 2024. You also earned 461,000 in investment income, and so your net position at the end of the year was $6 million. So you got a pretty substantial balance in there now. The pension liability, you're part of Essex Regional Retirement System, so you don't have a lot of control over assumptions or discount rates or anything like that. But the liability with Essex Regional decreased by $128,000. The district share that liability, and it totaled 6.8 million. Essex is about 61% funded, and that is actually up a little bit from last year when it was 58%. So they're making some progress over there too. They're using a discount rate of 7%. That's probably closer to what you see in the various retirement systems around the state. You'll see some that are a little bit lower than that, but once you start getting over that, it's looked at as being maybe a little bit aggressive with the rates, but there's no there's no legal requirement to fund OPEB right now. There is a legal requirement to fund pension, so it probably makes sense to be a little bit more conservative with the pension, just so that you're hitting your targets. But those are the things that I wanted to highlight in the financials, just to summarize. Most important thing, we were able to issue an unmodified opinion. It's a clean opinion. Best you can get on the financial statements. Sound budget process, effective budgetary controls, which is great. No over expenditures there. The budget information that we received was accurate. No internal control deficiencies, such as significant deficiencies and material weaknesses. You definitely don't want to see those, and there are none here, so that's great. And so that was really it for the financial statements. Report on federal awards. That's required for entities that expend $750,000 or more in federal funds. And I think Michelle and I checked it about 4 or 5 times each. It was like 749,000 and change. And I was like, is this right? And so, yeah, we checked it and double checked it, and it was under. So didn't have to do the audit of the federal awards this year. And that threshold is actually going to be going up to $1 million in FY26. And so once the COVID money is gone, there's a good chance that Manchester-Essex isn't going to need to have the audit of the federal awards unless something else happens where there's a large influx of federal funding. But that's good. That'll save you some money on your audit. You don't need to have the audit of federal award. Could probably save you around $5,000, which is not a bad thing. Maybe not that. And then in the management letter, I think this comment from what I heard tonight is probably a little bit dated about considering, you know, looking at the position for the payroll administrator and financial analyst, and kind of just, you know, raising the idea of having an accountant's position again. That we do see it in a lot of the other school districts, and I think there's definitely, you know, a lot of value to it. So thought that might be worth mentioning, where I knew that your current analyst was leaving, but it sounds like you've already hired for the position. So
Well, we have, but we expanded the job description to include some accounting duties.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. So,
good.
yes.
All right, excellent. The other 2 comments, there was one in there about adopting financial policies that had been in there for a while. And that was done during after year end, I guess. So we consider that to be resolved. So it's great to see that one done. Congratulations.
What is that? There's so many of these letters.
And then the last one was just about a prepayment of debt service that occurred back in FY23, and you just have to be careful that you're not. I know that there were some concerns about the end of the year and the timing and making sure that the payment was there on time, and it just ended up being a little bit too early before the appropriation was actually valid. The appropriation becomes valid on July 1, so you can't pay it on June 29th, even though it was a good intention.
Hollering at that point.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was everything. So very good results on the audit.
Any questions?
I'd like to ask, it's not a process question, just the way you framed it, not a results question. You said that you upload data to find possible suspicious transactions. Are you using like an AI system to do that? And you know, are you like data to do that?
It's a data service center, so it's, you know, the firm has all kinds of security protocols in there for protecting, you know, client information. Not my area of expertise, so I can't really tell you like how they do it. But, and then whether or not they're using AI, I don't know. They haven't really been that transparent with us about how they're making the selections, but I know that, you know, we have to put in different criteria, and then they'll basically search the data and kind of scrub the data for that. Whether or not they're using AI, I don't think so at this point, but I wouldn't be surprised if it, you know, didn't get incorporated sometime in the not too distant future. It seems to be showing up in a lot of different places.
Thank
you.
My question was about the policy that we actually did finally pass. I know it's not part of the audit, but is that something we took a look at? I mean, It's one thing to pass a policy, but the policy could say anything at all. And it could be.
I did take a look at them, but it was a while ago, so I can't tell you that I remember the details off the top of my head, but it looked like it addressed the things that, that we were, commenting on in my comment.
Come to mind that, or you didn't have something to bring to us saying flag, so that's great.
No.
Those are my questions.
Okay. They're brief.
Great. It's the same comment that I say most years, which is, it's really nice to have a professional come in here and say things like, no difficulties working with our administration. No problem receiving the information that we requested in a timely manner with no difficulties or concern or argument or pushback. Unmodified opinion being the best that we can do, being audit. We have so many discussions about our processes and people from the outside looking in. So it's really nice to have this to look at and say, no, they're representing us well. This is working, and we have people doing their jobs and our jobs as well, to be responsible stewards of the resources of the taxpayers and the council. So I really appreciate that. And management letter just gets shorter and shorter. It's just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You could tell the whole page for this recommendation. I feel like you just needed to add something. But thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. My pleasure. That's good.
So we'll move on to our FY 25-26 budget update.
Pleasure. Let's see you.
Towards the end.
Oh, no preemption.
Good tonight.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, FY 25, we're still in the process of closing that. Really, while our year ends June 30th, I can't even start to begin to do analysis until August. We're still getting invoices in through the month of July, and even though I tried to start to close, I had to restart it about 5 times. So we don't touch it in July, basically. So we are in that process. It will probably take me another couple of weeks. Our year-end report to DESI is due the end of this month, so I will have that report in on time, and then right around the same time, I'll be doing our year-end report, and we'll get that to you, like how we ended. Right now, it's looking like we do have some surplus revenues, not huge amount, but typical in accordance with past years. Revenues in excess of what we budgeted. Turning to FY 26, while we just started school 3 days ago, we are well into fiscal 26. We started July 1. I do want to let you know that the finalized state budget that the state released in July, the chapter 70 figure came in $100,000 more than we budgeted. Because we budget that, we talked about that today in workshop, we budget those figures so early on in the process. We don't know what the actual figures are until the state releases them in July. So we came in about $100,000, and that's been typical. Last year came in 81,000 over the budgeted amount, so that's pretty typical. Our transportation estimate is about $6,000 more than we budgeted, but that's actually based on what we ended up spending last year. So it'll be this calculation, what we spent, and give us a percentage back for reimbursement. Do want to mention there is some discussion of 9C cuts at the state level. They're threatening to, if they weren't quite able to obtain all the revenue they expected for last year, so they're thinking about possibly attacking some of our revenues this year. So I do want to just at least bring that to your attention that it has been discussed here and there. Hopefully you do not experience 9C cuts, but for example, chapter 70 could be attacked. I don't think it's huge amounts, but it could be impacted at some point for this year. So that's on the revenue side, and in terms of the appropriation side, do you want to put that up? As Pam mentioned, in terms of the hirings, we did have a late enrollment with a student with significant needs. We do need to hire one special ed teacher that was not planned for. We do have the availability of the funding for a TA position. So we have a TA position that we did not fill under special education. So roughly we will use that budgeted funds, and we'll need roughly another $50,000 to make it into a teaching position to meet the students' needs. That $50,000 will come out of a grant. We have been able to repurpose some of our grant funds for special education for this current year. So it won't hit the budget this coming year. But I did want to put it on your radars as it is a head that we were not planning on hiring as a teacher. But we do absolutely need it. And so our special education director put this slide together. So basically, the projected cost of this teacher is $82,000. So we have roughly $38,000 for TA funds, teaching assistant funds. We're going to use roughly $44,000 from IDEA grant funds. And then there is another piece we have to pay to MTRS, bringing that almost up to 50. And this overall cost is $82,000. However, that was our option number one. And we are very lucky that we had a program within our school system to meet the students' needs. Not all school systems have programs like this. And so our other option would be option two. We could look at an outplacement for the student to meet their needs. And we put together 3 different placements that could apply to the specific student, one $160,000, one $155,000, and another one at $162,000 for an average of $159,000. So right there, it shows you with a differentiator.
So we'll go with option.
Yeah, so we'll go with option one.
That's a transportation.
Right, plus transportation. So this shows you by having these in-house.
Especially 13 to 15 years.
Yes. So it shows you, I mean, this is actually a good explanation about how much we're saving by having these in-house programs. And Allison has done an amazing job of bringing these programs to us, expanding these programs. And this is an absolute savings, literally a last minute enrollment. We need to meet this child's needs, and we are able to do that in-house by just repurposing some funds. So it doesn't have an impact on this year's budget. It probably will in the next year's budget as we're planning for next year. And we just wanted to bring it to your attention.
And Allison and Michelle have been wonderful in supporting my ask that we use this as kind of a teachable moment, because typically this is a management side decision. We aren't changing any of the budget allocations for the coming year. There's a need, an educational need presented to us. The team has come up with a plan to fund it with existing resources. So I give it the go ahead to post and determine of the 2 options presented, this is the best way to go. It will add a head. We're not creating a new position. It's an existing type of position, but we're needing to add one to service the need. So it's going to show up at some point during the year as an additional 1.0, and there'll be questions and conversation about it. I was reflecting back on, we ran into this last year with having to add some TAs as kids came on board that had other needs. So we're just trying to get out in front of it this year, show you how we think through and work as a team to solve the problem. And this is what you hire the expert special education person to do. We make a recommendation, test it against the finance experts lens, and then bring it as a recommendation to me to kind of try to make a best judgment about the system needs, the student needs, and our available resources. So just walking you through the steps and giving you forewarning that there will be an additional FTE in our calculations as we go forward this year.
Is this something they could do outreach to the community one that's to showcase one of the strengths of the school district?
So we went back and forth because we never really want to. I wouldn't use an individual movement as a case. It's a sensitive concern. We try to make it as general as possible. We're a small school district, but I think we can talk. And when we do the special education review, which is on our calendar that we said earlier, we're going to look at some of the cost benefit of creating in-district programming, funding it versus relying on out-of-district programming. Because when you commit to an out-of-district program, it's somewhat like school choice it's fairly extenuating circumstances when someone starts in an out-of-district placement and then reverses course and comes back. It happens with a lot of work of our team, but it's more frequent that once you've choiced or once you profiled into that option, that's going to be a multi-year financial.
And most times, as this particular instance, it is in the best interest of the child if we keep serve the student here rather than sending them to another school. So it's in our financial interests as well as the students' best interests.
So we thought it was a good example of how illustrates our problem solving. It illustrates how in an organization of 1,200 students and 200 staff, there's a lot of fluctuation in staffing through the year. We'll lose a position, we'll gain a position, we'll have a new need. So it's not going to be lock it in March and it's going to exist that way for the next 18 months. And also just in showcase of the programming that we have and how we can get very last minute changes to our student population that we can't anticipate. Thanks for indulging us on that. We're going to talk a little bit more about this later in the fall. Thank you, Allison, for all of your work on this. She put all of this together.
Very helpful.
Very.
Thank you. Any just final questions? Any school committee comment for Joel?
Related to what you just said about the increase in Chapter 70 funding, I just think it's worth noting. I know Senator Bruce Tarr worked hard to advocate for the increase and for pupil funding for the state to districts, and it went from 104 a year in fiscal 25 to 150 per student a year this year. So I think it's worth noting that that we have people working on our behalf to try and continue this forward, and I don't think that's a big job. Yeah, thank you.
Because I had right-sized the budget for what I knew or confidently had expected, and then it came in even higher, which is great.
Yes. Great.
I just had a quick, question going back, reflecting on the ClearGov software. Like, is that going to be significantly different in how it's communicating the financials of the district to stakeholders and community members? Do you have an idea of that yet? Like,
I'm not sure yet. The public facing document with Clearview is going to be the budget book. So that's going to be a transformation about how we get our budget book out there. I know the town of Manchester already uses them, so you probably don't notice any difference between a PDF, document and the ClearGov template. But because you can make it as unique as you want and as customized as you want. The actual platform really will be used by Pam, myself, the principals, the directors to actually build the budget, the pieces that go into it.
And I'll own the push for this. So when Michelle's predecessor, Avi, departed, we are very Excel. And he's an Excel genius, no lie. In the intricacy of the Excel sheets, if something kept me up at night, it was, I'm going to break a formula and I'm not going to know it, and I'm going to think I'm reporting something correctly and it's going to be off. So Michelle heard a lot about that in her onboarding. I was crazy. I made him put everything in flat documents before he left. And he and I were ambitious and thought we were going to get to the ClearGov before he left, but that just didn't happen. What it will do is it'll take away our dependency on Excel and create a platform that people can enter directly into. So we're all working from the same set of information internally at the beginning. And then as we make changes in the budget, it will filter up to the budget book in the end. So right now, all of our processes are manual. So if we change something in the budget at the last minute, we have to go to the budget book and go through all of the text and make sure it aligns with what the last minute change was in the budget. And those things sound small, but there are mistakes. Every year there is something, and there's a lot of eyes on that book that we've got a number in our head from the beginning of the year. So we're reading it and we don't pick up on it. This is going to create more of a workflow, like a mechanized workflow, so that changes are appropriately represented in it. So we're putting a lot of eggs in the basket, and I think there's future functionality that we can develop out of it that might improve front-facing pieces. We couldn't fight it all up at the same time. So we're gonna start with the tool that we can all collectively work from in budget development. That will hopefully help us create a more robust budget book with charts and graphs that are representative of our numbers in the budget, and we'll see how it goes. We're gonna try it for the first time.
Will we approve the actual charges tonight?
Talk about it, it's not reading this and we need to.
Why don't I clean them up really by the 16th?
Yeah.
And I'll circulate it to you and support.
Thank you. Take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Zero.
Yeah.
I second.
Okay.
Yeah.
I second.
This is